Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the April meeting of Full Council. Just to remind you to switch your phones off. I'm sure you've all remembered that. We've got nobody in here that doesn't know where the facilities are, though we're not expecting any fire alarms, so follow me out, should there be one. Apologies for absence, please.
Received apologies from councillors Beattie, Hynink, Housden, Mancini, Boyle and Varley.
Thank you very much. Item 2, minutes. Has anybody got any amendments to the minutes or any last month's or anything we'd like to say? If not, can I have a proposer, please, Lucy and Paul? And go to the vote then. All those in favour? Thank you very much indeed. Do we have any declarations of interest? No, thank you. Items of urgent business? Nothing. We go then on to Chairman's communications. Just before I say what I've been up to, just to remind all of you that you have my invitation on the 23rd of next month to my Chairman's reception at Blakeney Harbour Rooms. Those of you who have not replied, it would be really nice if you could come and or at least reply and tell me you're not. But you'll miss a good night if you don't. Right, firstly, South Norfolk District Council on the 27th of February at the John Innes Centre. It started with a guided walk around the new John Innes facilities, which I couldn't get any photographs of, but it was a bit like a laboratory. There were blinds that went up and down. I kept expecting to see people working behind them, but all we saw was stainless steel and very clean walls. But the charity was for Wheat Fen. If you remember, it's Ted Ellis founded Wheat Fen around 70 years ago. He used to live there. And it's 100 years since his wildlife journal started. I can remember him on black and white television at 6 o'clock in the evening, talking about all his good works on that piece of nature reserve. So that was really interesting, and they were raising money for that, so it was good. And there was a really good buffet, Matthew. I'm sorry to say you missed it. 1st of March was the Justice Service at King's Lynn, and the High Sheriff hosted the service at the King's Lynn Minster, and it was attended by the Bishop of Norwich. There was an interesting talk from Paul Sanford, Chief Constable of Norfolk, and a reading from the Governor of HMP Wayland, Kevin Clark. And there was also a very joyous and lively performance by the African Choir of Norfolk. And I caught some of the service today, and there was a choir there, and I wondered if that was the same one. They were equally as joyous. 6th of March, Broadland District Council at the Horizon Centre, and it was a Bengali themed evening. And the chairman's charity was Norwich Door to Door, which provides safe and accessible and friendly transport for elderly and disabled. And there was Bengali dancing, celebrating the seasons of the year, which was very bright and cheerful. And then on the 15th of March, I went to the Theatre Royal National Symphony Orchestra of Ukraine. And they were remarkable, really, introduced by the Stephen Crocker, who's the creative director and CEO of the Theatre Royal. A very lively conductor. He was only about 4'6", but very lively. But they were about 30 members down on the full orchestra because of the war in Ukraine, and had lost quite a number of their players. So that was very sad, but very lively pianist, and we enjoyed greatly all the bazaars that went around that. And there was a the leader of Norfolk County Council was very good and gave a message of solidarity, and the Bishop of Norwich gave his blessing. So it was a very interesting evening, really. So that's all I've got to say. Just to remind you, please reply to my invitation. Public questions? Thankfully, none. Appointments to committees, Councillor Adams.
I think Chairman, it's leaders' announcements.
Oh, sorry,
Well,
ladies
yeah,
and gentlemen, beg your pardon.
no problem. I'll do that quite quickly. So, of course, today's announcement has been very significant, and we, I think, should welcome the clarity that it brings after quite a turbulent period. It's many months, as we know, of uncertainty in terms of the direction we were going. And as I've said elsewhere, many, including myself, but certainly around this chamber, were not comfortable about the prospect of local government reorganisation, and that remains the case in terms of the costs and impacts that would emerge. But this model, the three models that the government has chosen in its Minor II decision, I believe gives us the best chance of securing visible and accessible local government, at least far more so than the alternatives. And we obviously have very distinct local geographies, economies and discretionary services among the district, city and borough councils of Norfolk. And this certainly gives us the best opportunity within this significant change of continuing to act on those local needs. Of course, the level of cooperation that occurs between the authorities in the next steps may now largely depend on the outcomes of the local elections. But work will continue in the meantime in terms of appointing the strategic partner and begin work of developing, in our case, the East Norfolk Unitary Council. I'm very grateful to officers of this council, but also elsewhere, to members of the public who contributed in consultation responses, to parish councils, businesses and others who have helped develop and shape the proposal that went to government. And very pleased that it was, of course, successfully highlighted as the best option for Norfolk going forward. So, of course, you know, this was really just the end of the beginning. There's a significant amount of work to do from here. And of course, that is what we will now turn our attention to. That's all, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I jumped to public questions and statements, which there weren't any, and now appointments to committees, subcommittees, working parties, etc.
Nothing from ourselves, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Councillor Puncher.
Nothing from myself, thank you.
Thank you very much indeed. Right, we now go to portfolio reports. Just to remind you that there is one question per person, and we can't exceed 30 minutes. So can I ask you for questions for the portfolio holders, please? Right, Councillor Fitzgerald, if you'd like to start.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Question for Councillor Blaithwaite, please. I should like to ask why the Coastal Forum dates have been omitted for the first time in the programme of meetings 2026-27. The whole point of the forum is to include all who have an interest in the coast, from national government down to parish level, and all NGOs as well. The forum is also across the 3 Norfolk coastal authorities. It is therefore important that members are aware well in advance, so to encourage communities to engage. Remember, North Norfolk has the most dynamic coast in Northern Europe. Therefore, it is vital that residents are aware of the management processes taking place.
I agree. And I will do everything in my part to make sure everybody is aware. The NSERM is being reviewed, and it is important that everybody has a say, makes their say. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Councillor Vickers.
Thank you, Chairman. My question is for Councillor Adams. I have campaigned tirelessly to get a resolution to the issue of 9 Norwich Street in Fakenham, and the Fakenham community has given me their full backing, including presenting a petition to this council. At February's full council, Councillor Punchard asked you if you would have a confidential meeting with Fakenham councillors to discuss progress with resolving the issue of 9 Norwich Street. You refused to meet us. Jerome Mayhew MP has also written to the Chief Executive on this matter, and to the best of my knowledge has not received an acknowledgement. Whilst I appreciate the need for confidentiality, in view of the Council's hitherto inertia on this matter, I want an assurance that this new secret squirrels approach is not a smokescreen for doing nothing or doing very little and kicking this can down the road. To prevent playing politics and playing for time, I also want to know when you'll be in a position to share information with democratically elected members in Fakenham who have a mandate to represent the people of Fakenham.
Okay, so I previously met with the MP Fakenham Broadland, discussed this matter, but as was reported at the last full council meeting, I'm not in a position to share confidential legal information, and that remains the case. Hopefully we will have some announcements for you in due course, but that is not the case at the moment. We do not want to jeopardize progress in respect of resolving the issues at that property. But when that situation changes, of course, we will bring members of the council into the loop, and certainly the MP as well. But we simply cannot share information with you in respect of this matter at this time. Thank you.
Yes, Councillor Vickers.
I really want to know, Councillor Adams, how long in due course is going to be? How long is that going to stretch out for before you move to another stage and perhaps take a compulsory purchase order action?
I would refer you to my previous question. Thank you. My previous answer, I should say, Councillor Vickers, I do apologise. There's no information that I could really share with you that wouldn't play my cards publicly. So I'm not prepared to jeopardise the progress in respect of this. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Adams. I haven't had anybody over here catch my eye, so I'll go to Councillor Holiday.
Thank you very much. The question for Councillor Boyle. What preparations has NNDC made for the possible increased number of homeless households caused by the introduction of the Renters' Right Act? Thank you.
Thank you for your question. We're very carefully monitoring figures, and as you can see from the report, we haven't had a surge of people coming forward yet with from the Renters' Right Act. So I think a lot of the people had already got out of the market, and obviously if people present, we will follow our procedure to ensure that we keep people out of bed and breakfast accommodation and put them in temporary accommodation if we have to. But, you know, we're hoping there's nothing in the figures that suggests there's a spike as yet. But obviously we are constantly monitoring it. Thank you.
Okay. Councillor Bayes.
Thank you, Chair. My question is to Councillor Whittington. With regard to the Town of Culture funding, which is encouraging to see strong levels of interest from local towns, in addition to the planned joint application between Cromer and Sheringham, are there any other towns and communities that are considering to apply and engage, that you have engaged with or the council have engaged with? And furthermore, could you outline what roles and support the council is offering to assist towns in preparing and delivering these applications?
Yes, thank you for your question. The Town and Culture Award has been an interesting project. We have had quite considerable interest from North Norfolk. In fact, I was on North Norfolk Radio this morning with some of them. So Wells are putting one in, North Walsham are set to put one in, and Sheringham and Crome as a combined one. Those are the ones I'm aware of at the moment. We have offered ourselves as the accountable body, which you have to have a delivery body and an accountable body within the programme. But we gave a deadline of the end of February, but I know a couple of towns have gone over that to arrange with us what that would involve, because obviously with us moving forward into unitary and there's a bit of a crossover period, we didn't want to have an over expectation of what we could be doing as part of the accountable body. So those have been agreed with towns, and on the whole, they are more simplistic versions of accountable body in that we won't be responsible for delivering programs or managing programs. That will be the responsibility of the partnerships or the town communities, town councils, whoever is the lead body that is doing the delivery of it. So the support is there. We've encouraged people to do it. The Cultural Partnership has encouraged that across the district as well. And they are coming in, or they're going in, because they're not coming to us, they're going to government.
Mr. Bass. Councillor Fitzpatrick, I think, was first, and then Councillor Vision.
Right, thank you very much. It's a question for Councillor Brown. I understand that, I know we have a busy enforcement team. I understand there are 226 open cases, and one of which is the saga of the abandoned caravans at Gogsmill Road in Hempton, immediately adjoining my council ward, and I'm also the chairman of the parish council at Hempton. There's been ongoing correspondence. The last excuse was that they were going to convert them into glamping pods, which are now being abandoned. So it's an ongoing case. So it prompts me to wonder how does our rate of issuing enforcement notices and achieving results compare with other local authorities, given in this particular case it's dragged on for quite as long as it has?
Thank you, Councillor Fitzpatrick, for your question. I've got a confession. I've got to say to you that I don't have any knowledge of the particular enforcement case that you're raising with me. And even if I had, I'd be a little bit reluctant to go into that sort of granular detail at this particular time. I don't want to disappoint you further, but I'm not actually sure how our enforcement statistics compare with our competitor district councils. I hope they're as good as our record on winning appeals, which is absolutely stellar. But I will have to get back to you, I'm afraid, with a written answer on both elements of your question. Okay.
A written answer is very acceptable. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Cudgy.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My question is also for Councillor Brown, and hoping for no confessions on this one. The Fakenham Urban Extension, which is due to be built in my ward, is a key element of the new local plan, and indeed the 932 homes the government wants Councillor Brown to build every year in the district going forward. Phase one of that is for 950 houses. I haven't heard anything for months on progress being made in terms of the any applications for that, despite trying to winkle some information out of the planning team. Is he able to tell me what the status is of any applications for that site and when they might be forthcoming?
Thank you, councillor Cushing. I haven't got any information as to when applications may be forthcoming. I do know that there is a discussion about whether the site needs to progress in sections as opposed to a whole site applicant. That's as much as I know at the moment. I think I heard you mention the figure of 932 houses. Was that?
So the 932, I understand, is what the government have actually published that they want the district to build going forward, as opposed to the 557, which is in the local plan that we just signed off. So
Yeah,
that's being,
yeah, that
slightly sarcastic of the government there.
yeah, that would be the case if we had not been subject to the transitional arrangements, but we were by dint of commencing our local plan process prior to the general election in July 2024. And the significant takeaway from that is that we, in terms of delivery numbers through the local plan per year, is governed by the 2024 National Planning Policy Framework. And that has enabled us to use an analysis that will require us to deliver 557 dwellings, not 932, over the plan period it actually runs from 2025 to 2040, even though we're in 2026. However, the approval by the inspector did have a caveat that we were required to commence a new local plan almost immediately, and we have to actually confirm that we are doing so by the 30th of June and get to the first stage by the end of October to meet government requirements. So although the number is suppressed at the moment in comparison to what the government want us to deliver, it will be reviewed in the course of the next 2 to 3 years. I hope that gives a bit of clarity on that, but I will come back to you, if I may, on the first part of your question.
That would be appreciated if you could.
Yeah. Yeah, no problem. Thank you.
Thank you, councillors. Councillor Buttercover.
Thank you. Councillor Ringer, I was looking at your report and I see that officers were carrying out a duty of care initiative in March regarding trade waste. I just wondered whether you could give us a few more details on that and how well it had gone or not gone, please.
No, absolutely. I had an update on this just this morning, actually. And the duty of care checks were carried out in conjunction with colleagues from the Norfolk Waste Partnership as well. And in the first instance, this is just about reminding businesses that they do require a duty of care, i.e. if you're a business, you need your trade waste collection sorted. And there were a number of businesses which weren't compliant, which will be given our period of time to comply. This is something that we do periodically and will continue to do. We're looking to promote it a little bit more on social media, just so people are aware of the responsibilities that they have as a business, the obligations that they have to make sure that the waste that they do generate is disposed of properly.
Thank you, councillor. Councillor Dixon.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This question is to Councillor Toy. It's in effect a rerun of the question that I asked you last meeting, and I think it's probably right to say that whilst you and I spoke informally after that meeting, that hasn't been shared with other councillors, and I'm not sure whether in fairness to you, because it was a very lengthy question on the national economic and the employment indicators as they affect North Norfolk, it was probably a big ask for you to give an answer orally. And so I think we concluded that a written answer would be appropriate, and it would be best if it was shared with all councillors. I have yet to see that, so I wonder if you would revisit that, please, and share that with all councillors.
Most definitely. I think it's a really good and valid question. And it's not been forgotten. As you know, we've had the annual business forum, which we've worked through, and you were there and you saw that even the Norfolk Chamber aren't able to get to the granular detail for North Norfolk. So that's the real challenge for us. But I think it's a valid question that we need to investigate to see what we can say. Yes, I will share it with everybody. That is the intention. And I'm happy that you've, shared that with people. I think the thing to give people confidence at the moment is we've not seen any indication of any change in things at this time. But of course, many of the things that the government are changing haven't actually been put in place yet. They will be coming down in the next few months, and maybe we will see a change then. But yes, I'm more than happy to share it with people once we've got an answer. But I would like to get you a full answer rather than something that was just, we don't have the detail. I would like to see if we can find the detail first. But thank you for keeping it on the agenda.
Microphone, please.
Beg your pardon. The last part of the question, I think, is particularly relevant where, as I've said, what evidence there is to support the views that you come to, especially for the hospitality sector and youth unemployment. So it's within that sort of broader context of the national economic and the burdens that have been imposed from central government that I would direct you to the written question, which I obviously sent you straight after the council meeting. So if you can focus on those points, that would be really helpful.
Yeah,
Thank you.
and we are, and it's, as I say, it's trying to get to that granular detail for North Norfolk, which is the real challenge that you've presented. But I welcome the challenge. Thank you.
Thank you, councillors. Is there anybody waiting? I haven't seen any more hands up. In that case, thank you very much. We'll move on to item 10, which is workforce development and people strategy. Councillor Adams.
Thank you, Chairman. So you may recall that we committed to removing most elements of policy development from action plans, given the advent of local government reorganisation, with the exception of anything that had the longevity or legacy benefit. And this is one such exemption. Very simply, it's important that we continue and improve workforce development up to reorganisation, having well-equipped, experienced staff, of course, joined by new entrants into the sector of all ages and backgrounds, will provide the authorities or the new authorities strength and capability for decades to come. And the strategy we are looking at here will certainly be reflected in the policies of the emerging unitary authorities too, if of course it's serious about doing this business. Regardless of that, we know the sector has some recruitment challenges across distinct roles particularly, but we already of course enjoy strong recruitment and retention here at North Norfolk, and of course we wish to maintain that fact, and alongside this, we need to maintain and improve our relationship between staff and the organisation to ensure the operational effectiveness and keep the work that we do rewarding for everyone. Monitor this. I think I'm fighting against the rain here in terms of the noise in the background, sorry. And we'll always, of course, remain open-minded about areas for additional improvement and development. Those, those routes of dialogue are certainly are open, and we're always keen to learn. Really grateful to our staff for developing this strategy and getting it in front of us. Of course, it's been through the Joint Staff Consultative Committee already, and I'm very happy to propose acceptance this evening. Thank you.
Thank you very much, councillor. Does anybody wish to speak to this before I ask for a seconder? So I have councillor Shires seconding. If nobody wishes to speak, we will go to the vote. All those in favour of the workforce development and people strategy? Unanimous. Thank you very much indeed. Now we go on to item 11, which is markets and seafront service. And councillor Withington. Microphone.
Sorry. Fairly self-explanatory, but the recommendation is quite clear that we increase the headcount of the organisation through the creation of 2 separate part-time posts in the leisure and localities team, one as markets officer and one as seafront inspector, so that we can continue to run our markets effectively and safe. Sorry. So increase the headcount of the organisation through the creation of 2 separate part-time posts in the leisure and localities team, one as markets officer and one as seafront inspector. This has been a combined role before, but it would now be 2 separate part-time roles, which enables them to focus on the particular areas that they are appointed to. It enables us to continue to run our markets effectively and safely, and to manage our seafronts, albeit in some limited way with a limited amount of time. We cannot have a seafront inspector on the beach 24 hours a day. And as we would always get comments, well, he wasn't there when this dog did its business, etc. That's never, ever going to be achievable. But this is what we're looking to go forward with.
And are you proposing?
I'm proposing.
Thank you very much. Councillor Cushing to speak.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I've got a few comments to make on this, if I may. Firstly, I'm surprised this request is coming to the full council without having gone to either cabinet or overview and scrutiny first, and it certainly does need some scrutiny. What Councillor Withington is asking us to do is to make a financial decision to create 2 new posts without giving us any financial information to actually justify it. You simply stated that the posts are within the current head count. The converse of this is, if council doesn't fund these roles, then there'll be a much needed saving of money. Neither do Councillor Withington make any deem it necessary to make any explanation of what financial benefits may be derived to the council for creating these roles. We should just simply have in front of us a simple cost benefit analysis. You state in the report that Cromer, Sheringham and North Walsham councils, town councils, were approached to take on the management of these markets but declined. Presumably these markets develop benefits to those communities, but we've got the town councils who don't want to take responsibility or bear the costs for doing that. So the fact that this district council is going to fund these, it actually means that all residents across the district are having to pay for it. Now, I compare this with my own town of Fakenham, which has a superb market on Thursday, which has been managed by the town council, or probably managed by the town council since time immemorial. So we have a position in Fakenham where residents there have to pay for their own, through their precept to the town council to manage their market, but through their district council tax to pay for Cromer, Sheringham and North Walsham to also the council to pay for their markets too. And the other point I'd make is we're creating 2 roles. We had the announcement today about local government reform and the creation of the new East Norfolk Unitary Authority. I cannot for the life of me imagine that a new unitary authority will want to be managing markets going forward. And there will certainly, and as part of a larger process that this council has got to go through in the next couple of years, be looking at a lot of things that must be looked after, which will now need to be delegated down to the lower tier of government. And this is just a prime example of that. Also means that potentially we have 2 roles there, part-time roles, albeit, which we may have actually at some due course, even there's a risk we have to make them redundant. So I think there are a lot of questions on this, and as it stands, it's something that I can't support without further information.
Councillor Shires.
Thank you, and then I will defer to Officer McCallum. If you read paragraph 3.2, you will note that it's not an increase to budget. It's a full-time role which is being moved to two part-time roles, so it's just splitting a job in half. But I will defer to Officer McCallum just to confirm that this is not an additional financial spend.
Thank you. That is correct. It's not an additional financial strain on the council. The previous post holder undertook 2 roles. That has been covered temporarily, but as we move into the summer months, there's a desire to recruit into both roles, and it's deemed to be more practical to recruit as 2 part-time.
Thank you very much. Councillor Puncher.
Thank you, Chair. Question for Councillor Withington. I think Councillor Cushion had stolen most of my thunder, but just to prove I do think outside of Fakenham occasionally. Where it says wards affected, there's no mention of wells next to the sea. Would that not be included in terms of the seafront inspector part? Thank you.
I do believe that that comes under Holcombe because it's Holcombe seafront. We don't have responsibility for wells.
Councillor
It's just a
Dixon.
point of information. My understanding is that Wells comes under the Environment Agency.
Councillor Dixon. Yes, Councillor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yes, my one compliment to the paper the paper is brevity. But I think the aspect of clarity from what Councillor Cushing has outlined and taking into account Councillor Shire's response, clarity is somewhat lacking, and it would have been really helpful if that kind of information was in the paper as clearly as it should have been. So I rest my case at that point. Thank you.
Councillor Shires.
Sorry, it is quite clearly stated in 3.2. The preferred option is for the role to be split into 2 separate jobs. A unique seafront inspector role and the market supervisor role, taking the current number of hours and budget. We would seek to split the necessary hours required to open and close the markets over the course of 12 months from the remaining hours, which would be allocated to the seafront inspector role, therefore resulting in no overall increase in budget.
Thank you, Councillor Shires. Councillor Vickers.
Thank you, Chairman. I think, I don't want to paraphrase Councillor Cushing, but I think the point he was making is that other towns pay for their own market supervision and pay very well and supervise them very well. In fact, we've just started a Saturday food market in Fakenham with a small grant from the town council and run by the local community. So whilst this may be an existing post split in 2, if the town councils took on the responsibility for their own markets, as they jolly well should do, then that would be a savings to the council. And it really does annoy me when we've just had North Norfolk District Council services cut at the Connect building in Fakenham, that we're not looking to make savings elsewhere.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Adams.
Well, just reflecting on that last point, as you well know, Councillor Vickers, the service reduction that might appear to be the case at Fakenham Connect is reflective of the relative lack of use of that service, and we've got to deploy those resources where it's being demanded, and that is on the phones and that's on the emails. If, of course, we see some change in the way people are approaching or needing our services in Fakenham, then of course we review it. But we can certainly say the minority of footfall into that building is coming to see services that we provide. It's for the DWP, it's to a lesser extent the town council and other services. I think I heard the Councillor Dixon say, well, brevity, and I think that's reflective of the fact this is actually a very minor operational issue that we are pretty much slipping into War and Peace over. This is an existing role within the council that's been in place as far as I know for a long period of time, decades in fact. And it makes sense to split them, partly because of the times of when the promenades are at their most busiest and when we need to be keeping an eye on those versus the times when the markets are. We don't obviously want to see those roles being stretched so that they're not being completed. And we also want to ensure that we've got the operational capacity to meet the demand. Sheringham Market is doing, as we know, been doing pretty well, and want to see that continue to grow. Cromer's is much smaller, and I think that's reflective, frankly, of our neighbours. Weekend Market, and it's performing very well, but that obviously takes management. I can confirm we have had some conversations in respect of possibility of the town council in Sheringham. That wasn't their aspiration. But this is really such a minor issue. We're not talking about cost increases. We're not talking about the reason this has obviously come here, full council. When we're dealing with headcount increase, it must come. That's just a governance issue. So really no need for this to go through the scrutiny round through cabinet or anything. This is really a very minor operational change that we are talking about, just to try and be agile and meet the need that's there. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Adams, Councillor Holiday, and then Councillor Fitzpatrick, and then we'll go to the vote.
Thank you, Chair. I take the point you're making, Councillor Adams, but I think it's good practice to have a business plan with any change in headcount. And whether it's not an actual salary increase, presumably there are other operational issues. You have 2 people on payroll, that sort of thing, and they're not entirely analogous. And I think it would have been good practice also, if you're expecting a cost benefit from it, why isn't that articulated? If you think 2 people is better than 1, I think that should have been articulated clearly. So I'm very disappointed that this didn't have a business case with it. Thank you.
Councillor Fitzpatrick.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. The advantage of sending things like this to scrutiny is that the scrutiny can look at it and maybe make some recommendations. And one recommendation I thought they would make was to say we'll keep the coastal officer, the part-time coastal officer, but look very much with a view to cutting the part-time market officer. Speaking as someone that lives in the hinterland of the, I think off the top of my head, 850-year-old charter market at Fakenham, Lancaster, which has stood on its own 2 feet for 850 years. My understanding that the markets in Cromer and Sheringham, when they were set up many years ago by this council, was with the view that they would stand their own feet and be taken over by the relevant towns. And it's sad that they don't want them, and that suggests to me they maybe don't value them. But I think it's just a waste. That either we should do 2 things. Scrutiny could have looked and said, do we still need these markets? But I would have thought that a recommendation to cut one of the part-time posts is really something we should be achieving if the local councils don't want to take them on. Because I think that the funding, a lot of the profits from Fakenham charter market are put to good causes in the town. And but yet those people are paying Fakenham and the surrounding areas that pay into that market are actually paying for a part-time officer to look at towns that don't want to do anything themselves. Thanks.
I think that the discussion has lost the focus of what is in front of you today. I regret that. The position in North Horsham and Fakenham is that those towns have charter markets. They are in the marketplace. They are on public open land, highways that are closed on those days for that purpose. They have, as a number of members said, they have very long histories and are vested in those communities. The paper before you identifies that markets in Sheringham, particularly in Sheringham, is on a district council car park and is run commercially. It covers its costs in general terms, but does need to be managed. It does generate or support the town's economy and footfall on a Saturday and in the summer on a Wednesday. over a number of that's happened for many, many years. And that has been done by an officer who is also deployed on seafront management, antisocial behaviour, stopping people cycling or skateboarding, dog fouling on promenades and on the beaches, and managing that those hours for an individual. With the feedback we've got is that that isn't an attractive job or role, starting at 6 o'clock on a morning on a Saturday throughout the year, and then balancing 5 o'clock in the morning on Saturday morning throughout the year, and balancing that with adequate cover, particularly in the summer months, on those promenades, which are a fundamental element of the district's tourism appeal. So this is a proposal that seeks to address the challenge of recruiting into that position. There is at no extra cost to the authority. The options are detailed in the paper, and this is a pragmatic approach. It has been discussed, was discussed by the corporate leadership team, and it's presented to you today for the reasons the leader has outlined, in that it increases the headcount of the authority, and that is a decision for full council. So there is no additional cost. This is a procedural issue for improvement, ratification for you this evening, and I apologise if the paper hasn't explained the differences between the charter markets at North Walsham and Fakenham and Sheringham, but that is the difference, and I thought it was important, given the discussion, that was explained to you this evening. Thank you.
Thank you, Officer Blatch. That's very helpful. Councillor Withington.
Thank you. Point I would like to reiterate, and thank you, Officer Blatch, for your analysis of the situation. But this was very much brought forward as a savings option, with the view to trying to move the markets into alternative management. It isn't because of a lack of interest or because of lack of not valuing those markets. We've had in the past 2 years some considerable requests from the town, local economy, etc., to within Sheringham and Cromer, to try and ensure that those markets maintain their good standing, because they are so vital to the local economy. People come from Norwich to attend those markets, and from further afield as well. But it was down to capacity of organisations to, at this moment in time, to be able to take that on and be able to run with them effectively. And that was the concern of those organisations. Both the town councils and the chambers of trade were approached, but neither felt they had the capacity at the moment. It would have been rather foolhardy of us to try and force that issue and force an organisation that would not have been able to do it effectively and possibly safely, to take that on. This is a sensible decision which protects our businesses, it protects our town centres, and it provides a service for our community and visitors as well. So I think we should really be focusing on the fact that we are not increasing a budget here. We are just splitting a role.
Thank you, Councillor Withington. Councillor John Toy.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll try and be brief because this has gone on much longer than perhaps we needed to. But we've all acknowledged that markets are improve vibrancy in our towns. It is about markets that are on our property, and therefore we to expect someone else to run it. But they're really important, and everybody's spoken about the economic benefits. I've actually worked on both those markets in my long history of doing different things, and so I don't know if it's needed a second, but it hasn't been done, but I would be happy to do that. It's not been mentioned, so thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Toy. We will then go to the vote about the markets and seafront service as been discussed. We have a proposal in a second. Can we go to the vote, please? Those in favour? And those against? And any abstentions, please? Thank you very much indeed. That vote is carried. Recommendations from Cabinet, item 12.
I will say I certainly recognise the recommendations, but I will hand over to my deputy, Councillor Shires. Thank you.
When every member in this chamber thought we were done with the budget, here we go again. So what you have before you is the period 10 budget monitoring report. This is the final report on the current financial year before we get the out-term report. This has been through Cabinet and Overview and Scrutiny Committee. And again, I would like to offer my thanks to the Overview and Scrutiny Committee, who, since I have held the portfolio, have worked with me solidly to make sure that we are both on track and help support me through challenge in some of the decisions that we're making. So completely grateful to the Review and Scrutiny Committee members from across the political spectrum. I know it can be quite a dry topic, but we have spoken about it at length. So this report has a number of recommendations. Recommendation B is about the Disabled Facilities Grant addition. That isn't an addition from our own budget, that's an addition through the grant scheme. So that's just a minor point to make when we're looking at reserves. Through Overview and Scrutiny Committee, we had quite a conversation about the Extended Responsibility Producer Grant, in that the origins of the grant come from a, let's call it a levy on the manufacturers of packaging, and then that levy is distributed amongst those organisations, those councils, who then recycle the packaging. In year, I'll refer to it as the ERP from now on, the ERP was reduced as the government reassessed each council's needs, and I have spoken about that prior. When we first received the ERP, there was a little bit of uncertainty, as there is with most government grants, about what that was to be spent on, more so. And when we had set the budget for 25-26, we had budgeted for the recycling revenue budget, not taking that into consideration, which was possibly quite sensible, knowing that the government reduced it in year. Otherwise, we would have been reporting a deficit for that service area. So if we look at C, D and E collectively, what we are proposing here is to release the ERP from reserves, to then use that against the service, to as we would have done if we'd have budgeted with that in mind for the recycling expenditure. And then in previous reports, so this is why it's a little bit different here, we had intended to put the remainder of that money that was re-released from the recycling revenue budget straight into general reserve, because we all know we've got food waste coming, and we all know the government hasn't given us enough money to do food waste. So we're being proactive in putting that in the general reserve to cover the costs. The thing that's changed between Cabinet Overview and Scrutiny Committee and here, although I have spoken to members across the board about this, is that our communities, our residents are facing a crisis due to the increased costs of domestic oil. I've spoken to many members in this room who have spoken to residents who are concerned, and whilst we had thought we had warmer months coming, we've been faced with rain and hail today. And as we know, those households that run on domestic oil rely on it as well for hot water, for washing and such things. So the proposal D today is that I would like to take some of the money that we've moved from the ERP back into reserves, back into the revenue budget, and released more money. I would like to take £50,000 of that to support our communities who are facing financial hardship because of oil prices, which are out of this council's control. The proposal is that we will work with One of our trusted partners, who we've worked with before, it's not worded in the recommendation, but that will be North Norfolk Food Bank, who we know support communities across our district. They have had their own fuel bank where they have supported residents with costs of all manner of housing fuel. And we've used them previously, most notably, I think, during the pandemic when families were facing financial hardship then. So this is a fund which is for everyone that is facing financial hardship. We all know that we have working families who are facing financial hardship. We all know in this chamber that working doesn't pay enough. So for those families who are working really hard and running on oil, we hear you and we're here to support you. We know that many of our retirees, especially in our rural areas and most notably our coastal areas, are going to feel the pinch with this too. So if anybody is facing financial hardship, meaning that they cannot afford oil for their homes, then please do come forward. We have a fantastic financial inclusion team in this council who are not only supporting families and residents with this issue, they're making sure that everybody's getting the financial support that they can get, which is really important, especially when things are getting more expensive. I don't want anybody to feel unsupported through this if we get the hail and rain again. I think when we realised there was going to be a government announcement that they were going to rush in and support our residents, we all had hope. And I think the announcement is very welcome. But as noted at the full council meeting of Norfolk County Council yesterday, when you divide the money that we're expecting across every household that will use oil, it works out about £35 per household. And we know that that's not enough. There's a lot of uncertainty about whether or not the fund will arrive on the 1st of April or after the 1st of April. And there is no certainty at all about how that fund is to be governed or determined, or whether or not we have more money coming. So this is our step at localised support that we know we can distribute quickly, efficiently, and to reach the homes of those people who are feeling worried today and tomorrow and in the coming weeks about not being able to afford to heat their homes or even wash their dishes or even have a bath. So again, if you are struggling, please come forward. We're here to help. Every single local member in the room came into this to help their local communities, and you'll be able to access the fund by either visiting your local food bank, of which we have them in our towns, or there will be contact information shared by this council as to how you get to us.
I hope you were all able to hear that. Some in the background are shaking their heads, but I don't think we'll ask you to repeat it. I think we hopefully got the general gist of that. Does anybody wish to speak to it? No, I do need a second. Councillor Fitchburn.
Needs to be proposed as an amendment.
Yes, I'm assuming we're proposing that as an amendment. I need just for item D, I need a seconder and yes, a seconder. Thank you, Councillor Brown. Councillor Fitzpatrick, you'd like to speak?
Yeah, thanks. It's just a quick comment. I drive around the county quite a lot, and over the past couple of weeks, I've been noticing with horror as the price of petrol and diesel goes up. So, and of course, there's been a lot about the cost of fuel oil as well. So I was particularly pleased to see recommendation D in this recommendation to full council, because I think obviously so many times the less well off, the poor, the vulnerable people in fixed incomes are adversely affected, and they're the ones that don't come seeking for help. So I think it as well as physically, and weather like this, everyone thinks we're nearly in April and yet the weather's dropped. So it's really important for people's both physical and mental well-being that they know that there is help. and I'll certainly be doing what I can to publicise this, but I'd just like an assurance that the charity that's going to want us reaches out to the far ends of the district, place like mine, a very, very rural ward, and I'd just like an assurance that the do it. I'm sure that I'm seeking an assurance that's going to be given, but I think it's really important that everyone in the district benefits from this as well.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Shires.
Yeah, so this is where I'm going to rely on every single member of this room, every single member of this council. We are so embedded into our communities that we all know that no matter what we put on social media or put in the press or we put on we put on the website, we know that there will be people that we struggle to reach. So please, please, please make sure you all use your networks and make sure that this is publicised as possible, because you are quite right. It will be somebody who has never needed help before, who really, really struggles, and I don't want to miss anybody at all. I wish that the government had really reflected on our rural community to know that this money won't go far enough that they're proposing, but we've all sat in here before saying we know and we understand the government does not at all understand rural North Norfolk. So we are doing what we can today. So thank you very much. But if anybody needs anything, any further information, let's try and get this out as much as possible.
So thanks. It'd be useful maybe if you could do it, if could be prepared just a guide for everyone to, not just parish councils, but other local organisations. So that'd be really helpful. Thanks very much.
Councillor Holiday.
Just want to reiterate the benefit that the financial inclusion team bring. They're absolutely marvellous, and I've referred many people to them over the years. And I've been referring people for several months now to the fuel bank, and it's been very helpful. So I reiterate what everyone else has said. Thank you.
Councillor Toy.
Nearly, Mr. Chairman. No, I just, it's understanding, and Councillor Shires thankfully covered it, but I just want to reiterate that some of the people that have contacted me are people that you may not expect to be having those issues. It's not, it's not obvious. And so we need to find these people, we need to help them where we can. And yeah, it's really quite surprising, those that it's affected, that you would think are fine and not having problems. So yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Toy. Councillor Buttercooper.
Thank you. Let's go. Weather stopped. I'd just like to ask how quickly we're going to be able to implement this, because yes, we know the government funding is there. It's very generous, £35 a household. But it would be interesting to know how quickly we can get this in place, because obviously people are struggling now, and it's important we get the help to them as quickly as possible.
So I had some conversations already with the food bank ahead of the decision to make sure we could be rapid, but it is my understanding, and I'm going to glance over to Officer McCallum, that we can run from tomorrow.
Yes,
I think that's very positive. I think that's something.
Now, I have a proposed and a seconder for item D. We need to go to the vote for that, just for D at the minute. And so all those in favour of that amendment, please. And that is unanimous. I should possibly have asked Councillor Holiday if she was happy that everything had gone through overview and scrutiny.
I think I heard you say something about overview and scrutiny. It's quite difficult to hear over here. We made the same recommendations as listed up here above, except for D. We didn't discuss number D. We didn't scrutinise recommendation D, but we scrutinised the others, and we recommended them on to you. Thank you.
Right. Thank you very much. We're now going to go to the vote, and it's A to E that we're voting on. So we don't need a proposer in a second. We just need to vote for and against. So 4, please. And that is unanimous. And we can now go to recommendation 2, please. And I can confirm I was here at GRAC, so I can confirm that that's gone through.
recommendation two, treasury management has gone through GRAC. I'm happy to take any questions on that, but I don't feel like I need to talk on it further unless you wanted to add something from GRAC perspective.
Has anybody got anything to say about it? No? Okay, in that case, we do need to go to a vote. So all those in favour of recommendation two, please. That is again unanimous. Thank you very much. Item 13, recommendations from overview and scrutiny. Councillor Holiday.
Sorry, I just made them. I just said that we were recommending the three recommendations that we just covered. So all sorted, sir. Thanks.
Okay, thank you very much. I believe we have no questions received from members. No opposition business. Now we go to item 16, notices of motion, and we do have 30 minutes only for this. So I propose to give you 15 minutes each or thereabouts. And the first motion is the right to play pledge, and it's Councillor Whittington.
Thank you, Chair. The Youth Advisory Board and the Mancroft Advisory Project have been running a really effective campaign with their young people called Right to Play. And a number of us from this council recently attended their latest event at Thursford, where they launched this campaign and asked us all to consider making a pledge to follow the Right to Play. It was an important raising session. It was an important awareness raising session on what is an important topic. Play is fundamental to life and yet often undervalued. Accessibility, inclusivity are all buzzwords that we all think of, and many of us as councillors who support with funding bids, we think of these as point words for ensuring you get the sections in to get your project over the line. Sometimes we don't really seriously take account of what accessibility and inclusivity really means, and we don't really put it at the heart of what we do. So what do we actually mean by that? What does it mean when you really stop and think about it? What does it mean when we're thinking about everybody having access to play parks or activity spaces, as we're sometimes calling them? They do have to fulfill many roles. It might be under fives learning balance, overcoming fears, learning to take turns and the thrills of running free, exploring space and developing curiosity, meeting new friends. Older children burning off pent-up energy, releasing tension, challenging themselves, connecting with friends, and teenagers just hanging out and chilling. Parents relaxing, sharing experience with other parents, feeling less isolated, perhaps running with a buggy, or if lucky enough to enjoy a trim tail. Older people walking the boundaries and stopping to chat, and for a moment feeling connected with the world. But what does that social activity space need to have for all those different groups and all the people within those broad groups to be able to do this? The parent in a wheelchair with children, the teenager in a wheelchair out with their mates, the family with an autistic sibling who needs to be kept safe and feel secure and not overwhelmed. As a council, this is what we are having to think about within our social activity spaces. Areas of focus as a result have changed. It's not enough just to add in a basket swing and say the play park is now accessible. There'll always be pieces of kit which some children will not be able to access. For example, a 3-year-old would probably not be climbing on a pyramid frame at 3 meters high. So we provide alternatives. It's just the same for most activity equipment. A roundabout should be accessible for wheelchairs. A spinner should involve a child strap, so a child with balance issues can enjoy and benefit from using those core muscles safely. An interactive board should be positioned so children of all needs can congregate and play together. Not inside a boat that only some of the children can climb in and the child with the disability stands at the side watching. Or even me as a nanny with a grandchild unable to clamber in and keep up with a 3-year-old. It's embarrassing these days. Spaces need to support sensory needs. They need to not overload and create distress. It should be organised so it's connected for everyone and services become of great importance. Children should be able to play together regardless of additional needs. Quieter spaces away from the melee, contained spaces for safety, a surface that's clear and anyone can move over and play games together. Spaces connected, not just safety and accessible surfaces around equipment and then surrounded by grass where you've got to heave a wheelchair over the grass to get to the safe space. Social spaces where places are to sit and connect with people, including wheelchair spaces around the tables, not just shoved on the end of a bench as an afterthought. This is nothing more than what we are already committed to as a council. And our refurbishment of the Leas is an example of this. Therefore, I would commend the motion, and I think it will be an important, strong position statement for us to move forward as a unit into a unitary council, ensuring that we get the best for North Norfolk to continue into the future. And by using the 106 Play Park money more effectively to support this and highlight the need to do this, we can create the best value and benefits for everybody in our community using play spaces and activity spaces.
Thank you, Councillor Withington. Councillor Shires is seconding. Are you?
I will reserve my right to speak.
Thank you very much. In that case, I will go to Councillor Porter.
Thank you, Chair. Emma, would you mind putting the amendment on screen, please? Thank you. I'd like to propose a small amendment just to ensure that our parishes are properly protected and to reduce the risk of funding generated by development in one part of the district being used to benefit communities in entirely different areas. It's a small but important change which will safeguard the principle that all parts of North Norfolk retain fair access to play provision, an outcome that is both worthy and desirable. By keeping Section 106 contributions linked to the parish in which the development takes place, we can ensure that the benefits of development are felt directly within the local community, supporting a fairer and more transparent distribution of funding. Crucially, this will help avoid situations where, for example, a development in Fakenham contributes towards a playground in Munsley. This amendment provides clarity and helps secure a more equitable approach. Thank you.
I need a seconder for the amendment, please. Oh, Councillor Holiday.
Actually, I think we first of all ask whether the proposer and seconder accept the amendment, and if they do, it becomes part of the substantive and it doesn't need to go through that process.
So when I look at within the same parish, I completely get that. And for me, personally, that makes complete sense. But when we cross out the line about serving multiple developments and neighbourhoods, in a larger place like North Walsham, for example, where money can be pooled to create a better, more inclusive play area, then that's why that line's really important. So if I think about the amount of property we've got coming in North Walsham, if each one of those planning applications has a little park, but they're within one street of each other, that completely omits how we can make play more inclusive. So I wouldn't want to amend an amendment, and I don't know if I can amend an amendment, but I would be happy to accept the highlighted line if we can keep in the crossed outline just for larger development areas. I don't know if we can do that. I don't know how we do that, and I don't know how Councillor Withington feels about that.
I have some concerns. I understand where Councillor Porter is coming from. However, I think one of the issues we've had with trying to create accessible play spaces and activity spaces is that often the cost of inclusivity in terms of floor surface in particular, to make it genuinely accessible. And we had this with the Lees, didn't we? I think it was actually more than the actual cost of the play equipment to create that space. So what happens when you have a smaller play park being put in as part of the 106 with perhaps one swing and one slide, and then not a very accessible play space, it is not an accessible park. There isn't sufficient funding there to make that. And it's unlikely that small parishes would be able to generate the funding to do that. So that's quite a big concern for me, whether you're actually preventing what we're trying to achieve, in that you would be able to generate sufficient fund to make genuinely accessible places.
Councillor Porter, could I just come back to you and say what you think about those?
Yeah, I mean, obviously this applies to town councils as well as parish councils. And if, for example, any 106 money that was intended for Walcott was to go to North Walsham, there's many people cannot travel that far or want to travel that far. We don't have a regular bus service. What's the compromise?
I shouldn't speak like that because nobody can hear. I think the same parish as development makes sense. And reflecting on what you're saying about Walcott, for example, where we've got the social housing development there, there's a little play area there, and Walcott wouldn't have had that without 106. So I completely understand that. And we know that rural bus service doesn't serve everything, but the serving multiple developments and neighbourhoods is quite key for towns, rather than having the smaller pocket parks, to create something that's more inclusive to people where potentially they've only got one street to cross. So I'd be happy to compromise and keep one part in if you would be to protect villages, if you would be happy to compromise to ensure that those who are in towns with large developments can get playgrounds which will work.
Sorry, are you suggesting that if Walcott had some 106 money, you would take it for?
No, so if we keep the line in within the same parish as the development,
Okay.
that protects our smaller areas with 106. But in order to serve larger areas, we would need to keep in the line that says serve multiple developments and neighbourhoods. So it would protect the parish at parish level, but where we've got large developments like North Walsham with 2,500 homes coming, it would mean that we would get a better play area.
Officer Jordan would like to speak.
And Mr. Chairman, I can probably
Oh,
expedite this if you allow me just to speak. if I
Oh,
may.
right. Yes.
Having discussed what and heard that this conversation as leader of the Conservative group, as long as we can keep in the line highlighted in yellow there, I think we will accept the compromise. The other point I would actually make is that had the ruling group actually shared this with us beforehand, we could have probably expedited this and not had discussion in the chamber beforehand. If you remember the budget amendment, I think you'll find it does go both ways. And the last full council.
Perhaps the best way forward then, if Councillor Porter is agreeable, is that she proposes an amendment, but just with the top yellow line, without the removal of the following bullet point. It gets seconded and we vote on the amendment in that way, because I think that's reflects what everyone's agreeable to generally.
Yeah. So I propose that we include the words within the same parish as the development, and we do not strike out serve multiple developments and neighbourhoods. That's kept in.
Thank you very much, Councillor Porter. In that case, we've got a proposal. We've got a second there. Councillor Shiers. Oh, Councillor Netherway. has seconded it. So we'll go to the vote on that amendment, please. Right, the amendment is unanimous. So now we can go back to the debate, and I haven't forgotten you, Councillor Prensham.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just to say I did attend the event at Thursford along with several other councillors a few weeks ago, and very successful it was too. Having been involved in certainly town council playgrounds over many years, and the tens, if not hundreds of thousands that have been spent to make them accessible or inclusive, it certainly rang home. But one thing that did certainly stand out to me is around the surfaces that over the years, and Fakenham won't be the only place, we spent many tens of thousands of pounds on pieces of equipment in lovely little tarmac islands, but then the people can't actually get to them to use the equipment. And not only that's something that really hit home, not only the children, but the parents, carers, relatives as well, who use that equipment with them. And the biggest thing that struck me was around, they were talking about typical types of play equipment that you'd imagine in a park. And a surface would cost as much to surface it as it would the actual equipment above the ground. And that was just sort of horrifying, really. So absolutely wholeheartedly support this, and would encourage all other councillors to do so from the point of view of making sure all parks are accessible and inclusive. So much so, as Councillor Cushion was at the meeting with me for the Flash group recently, looking at the swimming pool development. There's a small movement of a small park, which is within the district council's fund, and discussed with Councillor Officer Hems around making sure it's accessible and inclusive. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Fredericks.
Thank you, Chair. I'm mindful that this is a policy amendment, and therefore it might need to go through another set of governance before we can change that policy. But I agree, this is a great thing, but I'm just aware of the governance of changing policy.
Thank you for that, Councillor Fredericks.
Councillor Fredericks, what governance process, what policy are you raising in regard to?
It's the S106 policy, so
right.
that the council adopts a policy approach where S106 lay contributions made where appropriately and legally permissible. So it's a really great idea. I'm just wondering about the governance, that we can actually make this into a policy decision, how we do that, because we can't do it on just a vote. But I think, you know, we all agree that in principle, this is a great motion. I'm just wondering what the governance is, or the process to do that properly and right first time.
If there are issues with that, if it's contrary to the local plan, for example, we might have to take that away. But I think that members would be able to vote in principle.
I've got Councillor Penfold and Councillor Toy, but I'm very conscious that we've gone well over the time now. And so hopefully you've got some extra contributions to make. Councillor Toy.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Very briefly, just obviously lots to talk about the town. It's great. I love it. Support it. Can we please, as we move forward, and as it mentions with LGR, and we get more control over it, that connectivity with walking and cycling routes is between villages as well, because often these communities, the children get off the bus and they need to talk to one another. So please, can we make sure that that's done as part of that policy going forward? Thank you.
Councillor Penfold.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Do support this, of course. It's really important, and the council does have a strong record in this. I'm just thinking back to the Sustainable Communities Fund, where we would often look at applications for play parks, and we were always mindful about accessibility and inclusivity in those applications and insisted upon it. So there is expertise that exists within the council, of course, amongst members who are on that panel and amongst officers who helped to monitor and deliver it. So I think just when officers are preparing that short position statement, it is worth
reminding ourselves of that, looking at those officers who were responsible for sustainable communities before and using that expertise that already exists. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Penfold. We'll go quickly to Councillor Shires.
Yeah, I just want to bring this back to the young people and pay particular thanks to YAB and having with Councillor Gray to my left spent quite some time with the youth club in North Walsham. They are a great bunch of very, very community focused, open individuals who far reach the parameters that are probably set for our young people within North Norfolk. They have quite openly talked about the right to play. They are a mix of young people who've got different needs, who really, really value being able to spend time with one another. And I had the pleasure of watching them rehearsing their speeches ahead of the presentation, which was absolutely delightful in the way that they are so passionate about the change they're trying to create here. So just to make sure that we bring this back to the young people who are trying to fight their own corner to make sure that not only do we have play areas, but play areas they can share with their friends and family. So a huge thank you to the young people from YAB who have been bold in what they're trying to achieve through this campaign. And I am very, very delighted to second the motion, but I wish the young people of YAB all power for trying to create change for themselves and their futures. It's quite incredible to see.
Thank you, Councillor Shires. Councillor Withington, if you wish to sum up. No, good. In that case, we will go to the substantive vote then. Please, all those in favour. That again is unanimous. And we come to the second motion to council on fly tipping, and I have to say, Councillor Brown, that we're running out of time, so.
Oh dear, I'm not. I'm not normally in that position, Mr. Chairman. Can I make a little request? Could I ask Officer Denny if she could pop up the graphic that I received from our environmental protection thing, please? Somewhere. Shall I make the maybe? Would you like me to make a start, Mr. Chairman?
Yes, it would be very helpful.
Yeah,
Councillor. If everybody is happy, I mean, we are fairly early tonight. I think we can possibly give you a little bit more free rein.
Yeah.
Oh, no, we'll keep to the time.
I can guarantee making a start, Mr. Chairman, but not necessarily guarantee finishing. But there you go. Right, so here goes. This motion is before you this evening because we have a developing problem here in our district due to years of government complacency towards fly tipping and also roadside littering. We had hoped to see from graphic that numbers are increasing year on year, and we really need to be doing something about it. We learn from the chart that there are 462 recorded fly tipping incidents on public land and 81 incidents on private land between the years 2023 and 2026. So the bulk of the liability to clear up therefore falls upon the council, who are responsible for the public land clearance. We know that fly tipping blights and despoils communities and costs governments literally millions of pounds, which could be spent much better on education, health, and other critical services. It is in that respect a bit of a thief of resources. People need to realise when they chuck litter from their car windows, they're likely to increase costs and create pressure on the council to put up council tax by their selfish and irresponsible behaviour. By way of background, in 2021, during the pandemic, some members here tonight will remember Dr. Chris Packham addressed us from the Glasgow COP26 conference. He surprised us when he told us that the district is the third best biodiverse region for nature in Britain, and in fact was the best in England because the other two are situated in Scotland. He also told us that nature's premier predator is actually mankind, with exposure to pollution, industrial farming, as well as the illegal disposal of litter and waste, all taking their toll. If you go on the RSPCA website, they name Norfolk as a hotspot for causing death and injury on our wildlife, with the only recent statistic I've got is for 2015 to 16, and there were 867 reported cases in this county. Roadside litter, quite apart from fly tipping alone, is estimated to kill 3 million small animals in the UK every year. Now let's just pause. I wonder, how does that sit with our recent nature recovery strategy? So we should encourage schools to include personal responsibility among pupils by including disposal of litter and more generally environmentally responsible behaviour in their curriculums. We need to make a start to educate and change attitudes. Fly tipping, it gives me no pleasure to say this, has been encouraged in recent years by none other than the County Council's slightly dubious experiments with charges and systems with their waste recycling menu of charges introduced in 2019, incidentally opposed by the Liberal Democrat group at that time. It was subsequently abandoned in 2024 to be replaced by a clumsy appointment system and reduced opening hours at our recycling centres, which have all contributed towards an inexorable rise in both reported and unreported fly tipping. So we need to review the level of national fines imposed to ensure there are matching fixed penalty notices we issue for the same offence. They tend to be on average lower than the notices that we issue. They are out of kilter with one another. Lower fines issued by the courts do undermine deterrence, they weaken enforcement powers, and they also leave councils like ours out of pocket. You can see our finance officer's portfolio holder rather taking a keen interest as I say that. So national sentencing guidelines need reviewing as a matter of some urgency. We know there's new legislation coming through to strengthen powers, and we need to be prepared to align with the new measures. These proposed measures include penalty points on driving licences for fly tippers, more funding over the next 3 years for enforcement, a new intelligence unit, naming illegal waste operators, why we haven't been doing that until now, goodness only knows. And the money will help with the cost of clearing illegal waste, and there's also to be a landfill tax rebate scheme to help out local authorities with the costs, burdens of clearing illegal waste. Our section 151 officer, please note and take that in. So I just wanted to finish with a big thank you to, on a positive note, to our Womble pickers, who seem to have recently done a sterling job between Aylmerton and Felbrigg on the 148, and all those who give up their time to remove litter from our communities. If we could just find a method for managing the health and safety barriers for the council to overcome, it may in fact encourage more people to give their time to volunteer. So in final conclusion, I refer to the 4 resolutions set out on what effectively is page 8 of the agenda, although it's not paginated with that number, and I commend this motion to members. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Brown.
I'm sure we'll find that graphics. It's a very nice graphic.
It's been, you missed it.
We've seen it. Oh,
Councillor Ringer,
sorry, beg your pardon, Mr. Chairman.
I shall reserve my right for now.
you're reserving your right. Thank you very much. Openness to debate. Councillor Cushing.
If I may, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to move a small amendment, which I think Officer Denny will put on the board. And it's not intended in any shape or form to be a hostile amendment. I warmly agree with everything that Councillor Brown has just said. And I think actually some of the things that it refers to some of the things that he's been mentioning. It's only something that our group actually agreed just prior to full council, so we couldn't have really shared it beforehand. But that's to look at lobbying the government to amend the Environmental Protection Act 1990 so that the government can take financial responsibility for the removal of fly tipping waste from private land. Having looked into this, there are some appalling statistics which I can add to. I mean, apparently last year, I think there were over 1 million cases reported of fly tipping on public highways alone. However, only 1,500 people were actually taken to court. Now, the courts actually do have some reasonable powers to deal with that. A magistrate's court, I understand, can impose fines of up to £50,000 or 12 months imprisonment. And in severe cases, the Crown Court can impose unlimited fines and up to 5 years imprisonment. However, the average fine is only £593, which is slightly more than the cost to hire a skip. So we're very happy to support this motion, whether you accept this amendment or not. But our amendment, we just focus on the people who actually, some of them that appear the financial brunt of that, which is private landowners, often not well-off people, but they are legally responsible for clearing up rubbish left behind on their land, which can cost them hundreds, if not many thousands of pounds. And not only that, the district councils are legally obligated to enforce action to ensure that landowners do this. So the whole thing feels wholly unfair. I take Councillor Brown's point, there needs to be a lot more government intervention in order to do this. If they had some financial responsibility for it, it might actually encourage them to take it more seriously than they perhaps previously have done. So that's really where our amendment is coming from.
Can we then deal with the amendment first and ask Councillor Brown what he feels?
I accept the amendment in the spirit with which it is intended. There's a sort of an uneasy symbiosis between private landowners who traditionally do take on insurance policies. It's not always financially viable for private landowners, particularly agricultural landowners, farmers, etc., who are looking to economise for reasons which are well documented recently. That does exist. So my only worry here is that, are we saying by introducing this amendment that we're wanting to remove the private insurance route that landowners do take and replace it with some sort of state subsidised system for reimbursing private landowners for the cost of removing illegal waste deposited on their land. I'm a little bit mindful that we may be opening a door here to quite high central taxation or increases in central taxation, because the money for the government, any government, to take this on would need to come from somewhere, and it would probably come from revenue taxes.
In that case, we need a seconder for the amendment, which is Councillor Holiday. You wish to speak?
Yes, I can speak now, actually. Because I mean, it's the really egregious fly tipping that we're seeing at the moment is on private land. And I'd like to say that not all private land is owned by wealthy landowners. There are charities who own land, conservation groups and public bodies that own public land, but it's not classed as public land, but essentially it is. So that not everybody is a rich landowner. And I'd like to put the word landowner in quotes, actually, for the sort of people I'm talking about. So these are the guys that are getting fly tipped in enormous quantities, and they're the guys that can't afford to have them. They probably can't even afford to take out the insurance, let alone afford to have it cleared. And those are the guys that we should be looking after. These are the big amounts of fly tipping, not just the little bits by the road.
Thank you, Councillor Adams.
Just procedurally, obviously, if the amendment is accepted, it forms part of the substantive now, so we don't need to vote on the amendment as such. We don't need to debate the amendment. We could debate. Well, that was my understanding.
So we're accepting the amendment.
So it forms the substantive motion now, and then we can proceed to debate with it in its entirety.
If it's agreed.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I'll accept the amendment. It's with a slight reservation, but I'm prepared to accept the amendment.
Right, good. In that case, we will go to Councillor Ringer. Oh, no,
Unless
no.
there's anyone else who wants to speak, I was just going to mention something about that, but I'm happy to.
Right, in that case, Councillor Batikofer first, please.
Thank you. I just wanted to say that, yes, it's really, really important that we do this. It's being picked up by our residents now. One of my parish councils raised this with me only in the last couple of weeks. I do think it's important that people don't try and act as vigilantes with this, that they make sure they report it as swiftly as they can to the district council officers. And if they can, if they've got any photographic evidence of people dumping the stuff, that makes life a heck of a lot easier to bring an enforcement case. But there is a lot of legislation that stops us acting, and people need to understand that we will always do our level best on this. But it's not always that easy, sadly. I wish it was.
Thank you, Councillor Batikofer. Just we have indeed run out of time, well out of time, but if we can quickly go to Councillor Rose and then Councillor Toy, and then we will go to the vote, please. Councillor Ring and then to the vote. Oh, sorry, yes.
Yeah, I think it's a fantastic motion. I really support increasing the fines on fly tipping, to be honest, because as Councillor Brown tried to point out with a graph that we couldn't get up on screen, but you know, we've got a good mental picture from Councillor Brown of the, you know, the scourge of fly tipping. I really support this motion, and I think we can all agree that littering, fly tipping is a blight on our district. And lastly, I would just like to make the point that the Wombles have done some fantastic work. I really support everything that they're doing. I see them out and about, wombling free pretty much everywhere. And I hope to be supporting them soon, going out in the community, doing a bit of, you know, picking up litter. And I would highly encourage members to do the same, you know, get involved in your communities and, you know, do the best that you can do in keeping the nation tidy.
Thank you, Councillor Rose. Councillor Toy and then Councillor Fitzpatrick.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll try and be brief. Yeah, I think this is something that personally I feel is really prevalent in the rural communities. That's where the dark lanes are, where people can come and throw things quietly out, and we suffer it. And actually, there are thousands of Wombles because most of the people who walk around the villages and go for a walk pick up the rubbish and take it home with them. So I really support this and that we drive this forward. It's important, and I'm glad that we picked up on the damage to wildlife as well, which is really critical that we acknowledge that. Thank you.
Councillor Fitzpatrick.
Yeah, thanks very much. Since I've been a member of this council, I've actually held it up as an exemplar on actually how to deal with fly tipping, because it does act very quickly and it takes people to court. There have been some big fines in the past. I don't want to go onto private land. As been said, everyone thinks it's large farm owners. Whether or not they're insured, I'm not, but it includes people's gardens, it includes the yard, the parking spaces in front of small shops and all the rest of it, and that's disproportionate. When this council is trying to help the high street, I think it's really important that we push central government. But I'm all in favour of pushing for the highest possible penalties against fly tipping, because it's just selfish and it puts the cost of disposing of waste on other people. And so I'm happy to support this as amended. Thank you.
Thank you very much, councillors. We will now go to the vote, go to Councillor Ringer before we go to the vote.
You've been trying to get rid of me all
I have,
evening,
yeah.
Councillor Fisher. I will try and be brief. Obviously, we've heard a lot about the increasing problem with fly tipping, and the numbers do back that up. And they are quite stark. I mean, we've talked a little bit about private landowners, and I've got a great deal of sympathy, particularly for groups. There was one, I think, not that long ago where the burden was placed on, I think it was Salthouse Heath Management Group, who are obviously a small group without any means to have removed that themselves. The vast majority does actually still end up on public land, where the burden on the removal of that falls to North Norfolk District Council. And as a council, we must obviously remain focused on that enforcement. Where we can prosecute, we should prosecute, and we do. But we also need the tools to be able to do that effectively. At the moment, those tools don't always exist. And there was an example just last week in my ward where a fly tip was discovered. Number plate was left there, probably from fallen off the back of a trailer, quite possibly. And most people, rightfully, and I did as well, assume that that gives us a clear line of inquiry. But in reality, we were unable to pursue that because the DVLA rules prevent that data being used unless there was a witness or CCTV footage of that, which of course there wasn't, and there very rarely will be in a rural district like ours. We do have access to that data for other reasons, if there's an abandoned vehicle, but we need an auditable trail, and we can't just go off and say, well, here's a picture of that number plate in situ, and go and follow those lines of inquiry. And that is something that is holding back local enforcement and doesn't act as a very good deterrent. Something needs to change centrally, really, for to indicate that they are serious about tackling environmental crime. I want to recognise as well the good work that is happening in our communities. I joined the North Norfolk Wombles litter pickers recently, and whilst I'm no stranger to litter picking, this was the first time I'd gone out on a section of A road between settlements, national speed limit. We collected 14 bags of rubbish in about half a mile, some larger items, and knowing this is a family viewing event and pre-watershed, I won't go into the detail about some of the most disgusting things that we did recover. But not just the Wombles, all the groups in their communities who give up their time, thank you. It is really appreciated. The council is working on duty of care checks. Councillor Peter Kofer asked a question about that earlier, but my advice to members of the public is if you come across fly tipping, leave it where it is, report it. Don't try and get into it and look for any evidence. You may end up actually doing more harm than good in terms of leading to a prosecution, and you yourself may come to harm because in some of these bags there could be all sorts of nasties, chemicals, needles, who knows. But I'm happy to second this motion. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Brown, do you wish to sum up?
Nothing further to. No, nothing further to add, Your Honour.
Well, that's a relief to everybody, Councillor Brown. Thank you very much.
Me included, Mr. Chairman.
We'll now go to the vote. All those in favour, please, of this motion. Thank you very much indeed. That's carried unanimously. we've no need to exclude the press and public. And we've got no private business. So I think that concludes